So tell me a little bit about Dog Eat Dog.
Okay, so Dog Eat Dog is the second of two albums that I recorded out in San Jose at a place called Greaseland Studio. And let me tell you about Greaseland.
Yeah.
So there's a guy named Chris Anderson. Call him Kid Anderson. He's a Norwegian guy.
Okay.
And he moved to the U.S. years ago to play guitar with Charlie Musselwhite, the great blues harmonica player.
Okay.
And Kid now plays in a group called Rick Estrin and the Nightcats. He's a guitar player, but he has a studio in his house in San Jose, and he does a lot of blues recording there. So Kid and I got to know each other at the Blues Music Awards a few years ago. Right. It was the 2016 awards, and I won an award that year for an album I did with Otis Clay called This Time for Real.
Right.
One of the other albums in the category was an album that he produced at Greaseland by the great Wee Willie Walker.
Okay.
And, when they announced the awards, I thought, well, of course I want to win, but if Wee Willie Walker wins, he deserves it because he's great.
Sure.
But I was fortunate enough to win
Absolutely,
the award with
right.
Otis, and then Kid and I got to know each other a little bit. Now, there's a sax player who plays now in my band named Eric Spaulding.
Okay.
And when he was living on the West Coast, he was working in Silicon Valley. He did a lot of sax sessions at Greaseland. So for years, he had been telling Kid, man, you got to get Billy Price out here. And, so we got to know each other.
Right.
Just thought, well, maybe let's work together one day. So it came around to time to do my next studio album. And I talked to Kid, and we worked out a deal, and I went out and I recorded the album Reckoning.
Yeah. Yep.
And Reckoning was fortunate enough to get a Blues Music Award nomination in that same category, Soul Blues Album of the Year, just this past year.
Right.
So I went in a year later, and I recorded another album with all the same musicians that he used on Reckoning. Eric actually came out this time and played saxophone, but basically the same people. And let me tell you about who he has in his studio. He's got the cream of the crop of Northern California musicians. He's got Jim Pugh playing keyboards. Jim played with Etta James and Robert Cray for many years. He had Alex Pedersen, who was the drummer in Rick Estrin and the Nightcats. Excuse me. And the bass player is the world famous Jerry Jamot. He comes up from Los Angeles for special projects that Kid does. So Jerry Jamot was the bass player on B.B. King, The Thrill Is Gone.
Wow.
He was the bass player on Aretha Franklin Live at the Fillmore. He was the bass player on King Curtis Live at the Fillmore.
That's a resume.
And on and on and on. Yeah, played with Greg Allman.
Wow.
He is really world class, and he plays bass on both of these albums.
Wow.
And then we have these great background singers, man. There's this gospel group from San Francisco, I think. They're called the Sons of the Soul Revivers, and they're just they're just amazing, and so fast. You just teach them the song and bang. I mean, they're ready. Their voices line up. They know exactly where they're going, and they're amazing. And then Kid's wife Lisa is an amazing singer. She was a finalist on one of those shows like Talent Search or
American Idol or American Talent or something.
It might have been American Idol. She was a finalist on that show.
Okay.
And she's an amazing singer. So, if it and he sleeps next to her. So 3 a.m, hey Lisa, I have an idea for a background part.
I'm sure she loves that.
let's go downstairs. And the thing is, man, this guy. He is just obsessed.
Wow.
Recording is his...
It's in his home, though.
It's in his home. It's his whole life. And
I bet.
He spends a tremendous amount of time getting the great sound that he gets on these albums.
Was the whole album recorded there?
Yes.
You did the whole thing? How long of a time frame taken?
Well, we work for about a week or two when I'm out there. But we spend a lot of time going over songs and, of course, writing before we get out
absolutely.
there, too. So we spend a lot of time chatting on Facebook Messenger and deciding what we're going to do. But when we go in, we're ready.
You've had to have seen an amazing change with technology, Billy. For how
well,
long?
That's for sure. But the great thing about Kid is, usually you have somebody who has a respect and an understanding for the great Southern Soul studios, let's say, or chess studios for blues.
Right.
Stax Volt and Memphis and stuff, which weren't really high-tech studios, but they got a certain rich, wonderful sound that we all love.
Analog.
So Kid has that appreciation. Plus, he's just world-class on the technology. So the combination of those two things is really powerful.
Composing has to be so much different too in collaboration because you can do so much of it virtual now, right?
Yeah.
And it was you used to have the mail tapes out. Obviously, that was the old way to do it.
I know. I work with a friend of mine in France, a guy named Fred Chapelier, a wonderful guitar player, and Fred and I write together. And as you say, we just trade MP3 files on the internet and. Mess around with them a little bit in GarageBand or something like that, or Logic, and that's the way we put them together.
So would you say you're a believer that technology has helped music?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know Fred if it weren't for technology.
Collaboration-wise, certainly.
Yeah, like, I've been over there like 4 times and done tours with him, and I'm going to Switzerland in November with him also. But I used to have... On one of my early websites, you remember those guest books that people used to have on websites. So, Fred sent me fan mail on my guest book on my website. Hey, I'm a big fan of Roy Buchanan, and I love your singing, and I keep up with your music too, and maybe you should come to France one day and play with me. So I'm thinking, okay, yeah, great. So I said, okay, man, send me your CDs. So he emails me some CDs, and they probably sat in my car for 6 months or so, and then I thought, okay, I'm cleaning out my car. Well, let me listen to this stuff here, and see what it sounds like, and then I'll throw it away. And I put the CD in, and it's like, whoa!
Okay, so
who is this guy? Yeah,
it's an aha moment. That probably doesn't happen a lot in your field, I would imagine.
Right. So he and I, then he was doing an album over there called Tribute to Roy Buchanan, and he asked me to sing a song on it.
Okay.
And then we did a full album together over here. He came over here in McKeesport. We did an album called Night Work, and then we did another live album over there in France. At this place called Charleville Métier. And
I'll let you say that.
Yeah. It's a little strange to perform for people who don't know English, to sing English.
I bet. Blues is big in France, though.
Yeah. Well, it's big all over Europe.
Yeah. I know for France, I had a couple of blues folks from Texas blues, Southern blues.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And they were... in the lower points of their career in terms of whether it's creativity or popularity, they would go to France because there was work. Right. There was always work. And then they would come back. So yeah.
So I'm playing at the Lucerne Blues Festival in Switzerland this year. And Jimmy, my keyboard player from my band here, and Toro, my drummer from my band in Baltimore, D.C., and then Fred, and Fred's bass player, and this great saxophone player we know, actually from Wales, but he lives in France. He plays in France. So a very international group.
Yeah, intercontinental, international group for sure.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable, let's take it back to the beginning.
Okay, sure.
What was your first interest in music? Who gave that to you? How did it happen to you?
Man, it was just the radio. Even when I was in grade school, the songs that stuck in my ear were Little Richard, Fats Domino, Chuck Berry, what they used to call rhythm and blues. They used to have the charts segregated into pop, rhythm and blues, and country. And I liked some of the pop and some of the rhythm and some of the country, but I really keyed into rhythm and blues. I loved it from the time I was a kid.
Okay.
And then, I grew up in New Jersey, and like during the heyday of soul music, the radio stations were just playing all this great stuff that was coming out of the South. This Otis Redding and Sam and Dave and Sam Cooke and Jackie Wilson and all this wonderful stuff. And I just became a fanatic for it. Even when in the mid '60s, when the the Beatles and the Rolling Stones came in. It was like, okay. Then let me put this on, which I really like.
Interesting. That's interesting.
I was never a big British fan.
So that was kind of lost on you then.
A little bit. I mean, I appreciate it now.
Sure. Sure. Your first band? Do you remember your first band?
My first band was Billy and the Uptights.
Billy and the Uptights.
Yep. Had them in high school. We used to wear green pinstripe pants, and the Uptights used to wear these black shirts with puffy sleeves, and I wore this gold shirt with puffy sleeves. I don't know where I found that damn thing, man, but
was it the moment you played? The first you actually performed the first time? Did you have the bug in you? Did you remember a certain moment where you looked out and go, "I can do this.
Definitely,
this is me.
Yeah.
I can do this."
Like 12 or 13.
That young.
Was that? Wow. It's one of the reasons why I never really learned to play guitar or anything. I mean, I fooled around with it, fooled around with harmonica a little bit, but really, I just wanted to be that front man, that soul man out front.
Running the show.
Yeah, because that's what I dug.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
The can you look back to anyone from a vocal standpoint that you can look back and say, I pulled a little bit here and I pulled a little bit here and I pulled a little bit here?
Yeah.
There's a plethora
a lot of
then.
people. As a blues singer, certainly Bobby Blue Bland is to me the greatest.
Okay.
The greatest ever. And as a performer, I always tried to be like James Brown, of course. There was nobody that could touch James
Those moves,
Brown. James Brown was amazing. And then as a soul singer later on, Al Green.
Oh, yeah.
And my friend Otis Clay, who I did an album with years later, and I performed a lot of shows with Otis.
Yeah, Al Green, what a voice, huh?
Oh my God, yeah, Al was just the greatest.
I have memories of my mother playing that over and over and over again as a little child.
Let's stay together, right?
I know, yeah. It was such a. It wasn't a cappella, was it? It was just a high. He had a high register, wasn't he?
Yeah, he had that beautiful falsetto.
Falsetto. There you go.
He patterned himself after a guy, a gospel singer by the name of Reverend Claude Jeter, who was the lead singer of the Swan Silvertones, who were from Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And Jeter was Al Green's idol.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he modeled his vocal stylings after him.
Yeah. Oh, you should hear some Swan Silvertones with Claude Jeter. Just amazing.
Does it sound like Al Green?
A little bit. Yeah, you'll recognize it because he has that falsetto.
Okay.
Yeah. Jeter was just superhuman.
I think a big part of your story, and I got this from family members, is your connection with Roy Buchanan.
Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about that, because as a guitar player myself and being involved in the guitar business for all those years, he was one of the greatest guitar players that I have ever seen. And I had the chance to see him one time.
He was ridiculous.
Ridiculously good.
Yep.
And always kind of low-key and under the radar. And there never seemed to be anything pretentious about him. He was just awesome.
Yeah, well, he had done a lot of studio work, of course.
Right.
And just an amazing gift. Just in his fingers, not in technology or anything.
Sure.
He played a Fender Telecaster out of a little Vibrolux amp, a Fender Vibrolux amp. And so there was a guy who lived in Pittsburgh who was living down in Washington, D.C. I guess he went to college at American University. And when Roy was developing that reputation as this great unknown guitar player, he used to play these gigs at this country place. I think it was in either Virginia or Maryland, I'm not sure, but it was called the Crossroads.
Okay.
And this guy from Pittsburgh started to hang around at the Crossroads and listen to Roy. And I think Roy was signed at that time to Polydor Records, and they had done a couple of albums, and they were looking to, beef up the band a little bit. Roy was a very sincere singer, but a very reluctant singer. He didn't really like to do it. He liked to play guitar. And so they got the idea they should bring in a singer. Well, this guy from Pittsburgh had heard me a few times at the Fox Cafe in Shadyside, where I had a band called the Rhythm Kings. And so they hired me to sing on this studio album. The album was called That's What I'm Here For. And I did that and went on the road with them for a while, and then I came back with the Rhythm Kings for a year or two, and then they had another album for Polydor. Right, they had one album they owed Polydor, and but before they were going to move to Atlantic Records. And so they decided to do a live album at Town Hall in New York, and that album was Livestock, and they brought me in to sing on Livestock. Right?
Okay.
And I always tell people the strange thing about this in retrospect is we used to think of the studio album as the big deal, and the live album was just this kind of throwaway thing. And no one remembers the studio album now, but Livestock, man, it's the one that everybody plays from Buchanan's career.
Isn't that funny though? Because I get it. There's a lot of throwaway live albums. Every artist has got one in their catalog, or two. But once in a while, there'll be a live album that actually will capture what was actually happening there.
That's true. And like a year and a half or 2 years ago, this label called, I think, All Good Music or something. I could have that wrong.
Sure.
But they released a double CD called Roy Buchanan Live at Town Hall. And somehow they had bought the rights to the entire evening that Livestock came from. So everything we played that night is on that album. And there's some really good stuff that never made it to that album.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a lost treasure there.
Yeah.
Yeah, live albums, it's more missed than hit, I think. And it's just the limitation of trying to capture the energy. I think there's an energy component there too that has to come through in the.
Yeah, I mean, it was a jam band basically. We didn't rehearse much. I mean, it was just a bunch of pretty good musicians playing blues,
Yeah,
and it comes off.
And Roy didn't like to sing very much, huh? He would rather.
No, he didn't like to. But I think he was actually pretty good,
Right.
Not maybe not technically a great singer, but as I say, he had a sincerity that you can't hide.
Sure. Sure. What through the course of your long career, if you had any special moments that stand out, whether it was someone that was playing behind you or someone that was actually you're playing in front of, or someone you were opening up for, or someone who was...
a couple things I can share with you.
Sure.
So we were in Harrisonburg, Virginia one time, and we were friends with a group called the Fabulous Thunderbirds back then. And Jimmy Vaughn was one of my very favorite guitar players. And then we started to hear, if you think Jimmy's great, you got to hear his little brother Stevie, and the people were just raving about Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble. And so we're in Harrisonburg, Virginia one time, and this guy comes in, and he introduces himself to me. He says, I'm Stevie Ray Vaughan. I'm Jimmy's little brother. Oh, man, you have to come up and play with us, man. So we were going to play Part-Time Love, the song by Little Johnny Taylor. And, it starts with a guitar introduction, and then the horns are supposed to come in. Bum, ba-na-na-na, So Stevie comes up, and I say, we're going to do Part-Time Love in the key of C. And, would you bring it in? We're taking it down from the 5, And we start it, and he starts playing. And I'm waiting for my horn players to come in, and they're just standing there looking at this guy.
A powerful player.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, just from a different place. He attacked the guitar to me, which was a wonderfully violent exercise.
Yeah.
Violent's a strange word to use, but you get what I mean. It was just a wonderfully, that had to be incredible to see him there.
Yeah, and then, we played shows with him and a lot of shows with the Thunderbirds as well.
Right.
Another moment I can share with you, I mentioned Otis Clay before. So the song that everybody remembers from Livestock is probably Can I Change My Mind?
Okay.
So the original singer of the first version of Can I Change My Mind was a great Chicago soul singer named Tyrone Davis. So Tyrone Davis was a good friend of Otis Clay's. And so we were doing a show on the west side of Chicago with Otis. Otis and I singing together, and my band backing up Otis and backing me.
Sure.
And Otis says, I got a surprise for you tonight. My friend Tyrone is coming down. So, we're on stage, and here comes this big, tall guy, man, with this fur coat and a hat and women on each of his arms, and he comes in, sits down right in front of the band. And Otis invites Tyrone up to sing with us. And we sang Turn Back the Hands of Time, If I could turn back the hands of time. So it was me, Otis Clay, Tyrone Davis.
Okay.
Singing "Turn Back the Hands of Time," like just trading off verses and and licks. I thought, man, if the Lord takes me right now,
You've lived.
I've lived. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of Tyrone Davis. Just love him.
And he came in all Chicago style, I'd imagine, too.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. He had the threads. Mm-hmm. He had the fur. He had the women.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you feel that rhythm and blues is never going to go away? The reason I ask this question is I've had musicians on from different genres.
Yeah.
And we talk a little bit about current music, and they all kind of say the same thing. They're very complimentary where they want to be, but a lot of it's lost on them. It just doesn't. There's whether it's over technology, whether it was auto tune, which has got to be for someone like yourself, almost kind of sad to a degree.
Yeah.
I
don't pay that much attention to
No,
it.
I know you. I can imagine. And I'm not much on.
And kid will use it if I'm out of tune on something. So yeah,
touche.
It's just a tool, man.
It's a tool. No, I get it. And you know what? That's a good point. I think when it's used as a tool, there's a place for it.
Yeah, that's right.
But if it's used as the main thing,
yeah, like I'll say, kid, I think I'm a little flat on that. And he says, oh yeah, no problem, hold it.
Naturally,
yeah.
The gentleman likes technology, which and I get that too. I mean, it's here. It's obviously here to stay. Yeah. And I'm not much on genres because I think it's the less we have them, the more we tear the labels apart, the better it all becomes.
I really agree with you. One time somebody said to me, "So what do you call this? Is it soul? Is it blues? Is it rhythm and blues?" I said, "Yeah."
All above.
Yeah. Yes.
All the above.
Yeah.
Do you see your style of music, I should say? I'll use the word style to kind of label it. Mm-hmm. Do you see it being timeless? Because I kind of do. And I think it's one of the few quote-unquote styles that actually is.
Yeah. Well, yes. It changes over time, of course. They'll never be... No one's ever going to make records that sound like Howlin' Wolf records from 1954. I mean, it just isn't possible anymore culturally to do that. But there's still a lot of very real and soulful blues being recorded and soul music being recorded. It's different. It changes a little bit. I mean, we talked about Stevie before. Stevie was a great guitar player, but the consequences of what he did to change the music, to my ears, tend to be a little negative. I mean, the emphasis on guitar, and to my ears, overplaying.
It's an interesting comment.
Yeah, I always loved his brother. Jimmy. I still do. Jimmy is a very, very tasteful guitar player,
soulful player.
Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't any overplaying.
No, I'm not putting Stevie down.
No,
or anybody really. It's just that
it became guitar oriented.
Yeah, and then the economics of trying to make a living these days. There's no money to be made from CD sales, and so you really have to get in the van and go out and play. Well, it's a lot easier. For a blues band, it's a 3-piece blues band led by a singing guitar player. That's the way to do it.
Sure.
You get paid $600, you're kind of okay.
Right.
Whereas me, I go out with a full rhythm section, and I like to take 2 horns.
Sure. It's tough.
Not easy.
No, and that's probably that's got to be a massive change that you've watched evolve in time. The change just in the monetary remuneration for what you do, that had to be, and other artists tell me it kind of happened overnight. There wasn't downloading, and then all of a sudden there was downloading.
Right.
Is that pretty much how you remember it?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. I mean, it started, I guess, with Napster, and then companies like Spotify took advantage of that model, and But sometimes I think, well, back in the day, record companies exploited musicians, so musicians have never made a lot of money on recordings, except the ones that were able to negotiate a favorable deal, and that's not most of them,
the landscape is so different now, though. Wouldn't you agree? From just
yeah, it's different, but I'm not sure it's that much worse. And the other thing is, it's just so much damn fun to do that there's it hasn't stopped people from being creative.
No, and I think that'll always
and
be there.
You do find ways to get revenue streams. I have a box of T-shirts in my trunk, and I sell T-shirts, and people like to buy physical products at the shows.
Right.
So I sign the CD for them and take a selfie and do okay that way.
Yeah, I bet. And that's never changed. There's still that tangible item.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's a token of whether it's a souvenir, something to remember the show by.
Yep.
And that's a phenomenon. That's been going on since probably the first band T-shirt was sold, right?
Right. Merchandise is way more important these days.
Yeah, and would you also agree too that for a younger act, even the established acts, you have to tour now to get paid?
Oh yeah.
Because I was told by a couple artists that you had to in the 70s or the 80s, you could tour to support the album sales.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of reversed. Is
right.
that right?
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. So the touring is actually it's a revenue generator if
it's
done
an
correctly.
end in itself. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's done correctly.
Yep.
Is it? I mean, you've been touring and recording for a a long time, so naturally the passion for you is still high, and I can tell it's still there. Nothing is wavered. I mean,
definitely.
Audience is a little different at all.
Yeah, they're older, yeah, that's just a fact of life, especially for the type of music that I do. I would like to be able to find a younger audience. I think the things that we do ought to appeal to just about anybody. And,
sure.
So we just work at it.
Yeah, rhythm. Talk a little bit about Pittsburgh too.
Mm-hmm.
My background, mutual friend, my uncle is a friend of Billy's. I grew up in that environment. I was pulled to all the Gravels gigs and Gary Boloma, and all the, it was always R&B in town here.
Yeah.
So for me, my viewpoint was probably very narrow because to me that was just the acceptable thing that the adults did on the weekend, and then I became that adult. And it was very vibrant in Pittsburgh for a long time, and then but I've noticed the last maybe 15 years or so, maybe 20 years since the 2000s. The live scene is really hit or miss anymore for me locally. At least that's where I can see it. Am I missing something? Am I wrong?
I really am not the one to judge that.
I get it. I get it.
I'm not going out just to hear somebody I don't know about. If I'm going out, I have a purpose to do it.
I get that.
So
I get that.
I don't know. My sense though is that I'm always skeptical of people who say everything's gone downhill since my day. They don't make any good music anymore. Well, you know what? Today is somebody's golden age.
There's no question.
It's just that I personally am not hearing it. I try to keep open to things.
Sure.
I have a Spotify account. I have a weekly Discover playlist. I hear a lot of stuff and a wide variety of stuff, and I like it.
Right.
I like a lot of hip hop and a lot of other things that are being done today. So I have no doubt that there are brilliant people making music today. I'm just not in touch with it.
And maybe also too, the way it's being delivered is different, and maybe the live events are just different. They're handled different. The crowds are different. So maybe all of that kind of, for us older people, we look at it and we say it's just not what it was. Like you said, this is somebody's golden age.
But it's
a great way to put it.
When we were kids, I'm sure that the people who loved swing and big band jazz and stuff were saying the same thing about Sam Cooke and Jackie Wilson.
Right. This new music, this new stuff.
Yeah, it just evolves. I mean, the human creativity and the human spirit is the common denominator, and people do keep creating
from a creativity standpoint. I would agree. And I remember growing up and just horrifying my parents at the rock and roll of the 70s and some of the early 80s. Right. And the things I was listening to, which are some of it's on the wall here, was rather shocking to my folks.
Yeah.
And even my uncle, for that matter, he laughed a lot at it, being.
And I don't want to become that guy. I don't want to become somebody clucking his tongue at the kids. I just don't want to be that.
No, I get it. But if it's R&B and rhythm and blues, to me, again, that genre of music was always just so cool, and it didn't seem to suffer through fads, and it was just always quote unquote it always was vibrant to me.
It's a naturally conservative music, I think, in terms of its classic. Yeah, I think that's true. And there are still people working that genre. I mean, you talk about locally, the Common Heart are basically an R&B band,
right?
Clinton's an R&B singer, and they come from the same place I do.
Got it. Got it. And you mentioned that the British invasion was kind of lost on you. Was there music of the Stones that you used to? The reason I bring the Stones up is that's that rock and roll style, rhythm and blues. Yeah. The most famous one that the average person would know.
Of all those groups, I think I like the Stones the best, but I'm not a huge Stones fan.
Okay.
I like it. I appreciate it, but I'm not,
it's not your first choice when you go to listen.
Not really. The band I liked a real lot back then was the J. Giles Band.
Oh, yeah. I can see that.
They were a little more traditional than the Stones, and also those first 3 or 4 albums by the band. I just love that group. That to me was the greatest rock group.
That was a super group for sure.
Of
the first
time.
and the original, probably.
Yeah, but music from Big Pink, I think, is just a perfect album. Love it.
Interesting you said Jay Giles, because I see it. I can see based on how you perform, and I can see.
Well, Peter Wolf was like me, a huge fan. He was a DJ, and he right from the same place. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah. I can see that. So, what's on tap here? What's next for you? What are you involved with now? Where are you going?
Sure. So I'm on a kind of a year-long tour of supporting the new album, Dog Eat Dog.
Go get it. It's excellent, by the way.
Thank you. And let's see, shows that are coming up. I'm going to be in Harrisburg for a release party in a couple of weeks for Central PA, and then have a release party in Virginia Beach, Virginia at the beginning of September. I have shows in Baltimore, where I live now, and in Columbia, Maryland, which is nearby. In September, I'm on a new label called Gulf Coast.
Right.
There's a blues rock guitarist named Mike Zito, and Mike is one of the 2 co-founders of Gulf Coast. And actually tomorrow I'm going down to the Heritage Blues Festival in Wheeling to sing a song with Mike and his band.
Very cool.
On Sunday evening. But we're doing a Gulf Coast showcase at this massive blues festival called the Big Blues Bender in Las Vegas.
Big Blues Bender.
Big Blues Bender.
Of all places, lots of that makes sense.
Yeah. So there's a benefit for something called the Heart Fund, which benefits musicians and their families. And we're going to do a Gulf Coast Records showcase that night. It's going to be me and Mike and a woman from the West Coast named Diana Ryan, and a band from St. Louis, Odds Lane, and another guy from St. Louis, Tony Campanella.
Okay.
And we're all going to do this Gulf Coast thing. And then, and Jimmy Carpenter, too, the great saxophone player.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're doing that same thing in Kansas City in October at a place called Knucklehead Saloon, big blues club in Kansas City. So that'll be fun. And then I think I mentioned the Lucerne Blues Festival in November. So
you got some travel ahead of you.
Some travel, yeah.
Yeah, sure. International travel's got to be special. That's got to be special.
Oh, it's great. I love it.
Do you?
It's been a few years since I've been out there. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, come back and see me again, sir.
Well, thanks. This was really, really painless and fun.
Well, it was also an honor to have you here, too.
You.
This means a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, friends.
Good.
Painless?
Yeah, I think you got some good stuff there, right?
Well, I appreciate you sharing. That means a lot to me.